Congrats, ladies.
Thank you.
Good to see you all again.
See you too.
All right, folks, we're back with Columbia today. As always, make sure to silence your cell phones. Please provide your name and media affiliation each time you ask a question. If you're on Zoom, raise your hand and we'll get to you when we can. Recording press conferences on cell phones or cameras is prohibited. Once again, we've got Cecilia Collins, Kitty Henderson, and Perry Page. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll get the mic to you.
With the Associated Press, for all three of you, what has the last 16 hours been like? Have your phones blown up and such?
I think there's been a lot of support from our community, obviously. Last night we definitely took that in, and then this morning we've woken up, it's a new page turned, focused on West Virginia, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a lot of celebration, community love, but definitely is a lot of texts going on to the next, we're on to the next thing.
Good?
Agree.
Pete, for any of you, how do you kind of balance and transition the emotional high of winning that first tournament game to refocusing on tomorrow's game and kind of just staying even keeled?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to even Selection Show Sunday. Obviously, you go through that emotional high with making the tournament when you don't get that automatic bid. So I think kind of taking the same approach. Obviously, we're excited about last night, and like they both said, there's been a ton of support from our community, but at the same time, we're ready to go and start preparing for West Virginia. They're a good team, and we're locked in on that right now.
We'll go down here to the middle.
Hey, Jillian Prince with the Columbia Daily Spectator. What jumps out at you guys about this West Virginia team, and what kind of lessons are you going to take from Washington yesterday, especially against a team with some larger players?
Kitty, why don't you start?
Yeah, sure. I think West Virginia, it's very clear they're a really good defensive team, so it's going to be a really good battle of two really good defensive teams. I think from yesterday, just sticking to the game plan from the beginning, I think at the beginning we, missed a couple easy looks and we let that dictate how we were playing, so not being outcome-oriented, being much more focused on just the things we can control. But yeah, like I said, their defense is going to try to fuel them, so we just have to be ready for that.
Perry, anything to add?
Absolutely. I think just not feeding into what they want us to do, so making sure that we're executing our game plan to the way that we want to and dictate our offense with their defense.
We'll come down to the left.
Daniel Woods, WV Metro News. For any of you, on a quick turnaround like this, how hard is it to prepare for pressure like West Virginia is going to throw at you?
Cecilia, go ahead.
They're definitely a different team compared to who we played against Washington, but we've played against pressure this year, especially in our league with Harvard. So it's a similar team in that way, but we have the best coaching staff in the country. So, when we trust in them and we execute that game plan, there's very few people who could beat us. So I think we're just focused on the preparation right now and, locking in, especially against that pressure that West Virginia has.
Kitty, anything to add?
Yeah, this is just what you prepare for all year. This is why you do ball handling every day. This is why you do all the little details. I think we're ready for it, and we just have to trust our work.
Anyone else in the room?
Hi, Cody Nesper, West Virginia Sports Now. This week leading up to this, do you spend any time on West Virginia, or was it all Washington, and now just in the last night and today, it's West Virginia?
Perry, why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we definitely just focused on Washington for sure. It's easy to just look ahead and see what your new further opponents will be, but then you get lost in who your next opponent is. So we definitely locked in on Washington, and now we're on to the next thing.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think our coaches obviously looked ahead and saw them, but I think for us it was just such a quick turnaround that we had to focus more on Washington first as step one, and then now we're locked in on West Virginia.
We do have a couple of questions on Zoom. We'll go ahead and take those. Steve Silverman, why don't you go ahead, identify yourself, and go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Steve Silverman from Ivy Hoops Online. First, congrats, you guys, on the great win yesterday. And, you guys have been talking a little bit about, the pride that you're getting from your own Columbia community there. But I wonder also if you guys have any sense of sort of carrying the banner for the Ivy League as a whole. Anytime the Ivy League gets a win in the NCAA tournament, it's a really big deal. So do you guys carry that banner to some extent?
Kitty, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit, definitely. I think you're playing for Columbia. I mean, obviously that's like the thing that's kind of in your heart while you're playing, but I think you're playing for something bigger than yourself as well. So, I mean, I think the Ivy League, we're playing for them. We're also playing for all our community. I think it definitely means more than just, our team, but at the end of the day, like, I'm always so proud of the name across our chest.
CC, you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kitty said it really well. We're also just very proud to be a part of this league. To get those 3 bids to the tournament for the first time ever, we were super grateful. And like we said, like a few days ago, we wanted to, we're supposed to be here. Us, all 3 teams are supposed to be here. So I think getting that first tournament win for our team is like super important. And obviously, we were just grateful that we were able to be in that position in the first place.
All right, we'll go to Jen Hatfield on the Zoom. Jen, go ahead.
Hey everybody, Jen Hadfield from the Next. For all of you guys, I know this NCAA tournament win was a long time coming as far as, something you guys had dreamed about and planned toward. And I'm curious, after the buzzer went off, when you were able to celebrate it, did it feel like you imagined it would when you visualized it or when you dreamed about it?
Perry, why don't you start?
Absolutely. We talk about and do a lot of visualization before the game starts too, and then just like envisioning yourself in those moments. A lot of reps we talk about like mental reps, and then like being able to like feel it before it happens. So it was definitely surreal to understand like how it happened after the game once that buzzer sounded.
Kitty, you want to follow?
Yeah, I mean, I think also just the way that it happened, I mean, fighting back from 13 points down at half, like knowing we weren't giving it our best, I think, once the buzzer sounded, it felt great, honestly. Like, it was really fun to celebrate with my team, people who work so hard every single day together, and it's definitely exactly how we imagined it.
We've got one in the room. Go ahead.
Daniel Woods, WV Metro News. Perry, with your dad's background at Pitt, has there been any kind of conversation about playing WVU and his experiences against the Mountaineers?
Obviously the Pitt versus WVU is a very rivalry backyard brawl matchup, so I'm very excited. I've never played WVU before, and I'm really excited to have this matchup coming up.
We'll go back to Zoom. Rob Brown, go ahead.
Rob Brown, Ivy Hoops Online. CCU had mentioned that not only do you all play a really strong press, but you faced Harvard. What makes West Virginia's press different?
Yeah, I mean, they're just a really scrappy team in general, super physical. They'll go for a ton of steals, especially when they press you in the full court. So I think they're different in that way. I don't think Harvard's as aggressive. But, they're a very good team. They're very well coached. And we just have to be disciplined, work. Kitty said it a bunch, but, we've worked on our ball handling all season, passing, and it just comes down to being disciplined in that way, and shot fakes, ball fakes, will help alleviate some of that pressure.
Rob, did you have another one you wanted? We'll bring it back into the room.
Sure. Oh, no. Well, I'm here. Thanks.
Oh, here you go.
Kitty and Perry, how much do the Ivy League back-to-backs and the non-conference tournaments that you've played over the years, get you ready for playing 2 or 3 games in a short period of time?
Kitty, you can start.
Yeah. No, I think, everything builds up to this. Like, it prepares you so well. We've had so many games where it's either been, like, the very next day or we've had one day in between. So I think we feel really prepared. Obviously, recovery was really important last night and today. But, yeah, we're ready to go. Our whole schedule is what kind of prepared us for this moment. So, yeah.
Perry, go ahead.
All good.
You good?
She said it well.
All right, we'll go down here to the middle.
Lance Meadow, GoColumbiaLions.com. Ladies, really all 3, the point differential in the third quarter this season has been extremely impressive, and clearly it was a turning point yesterday. Why has things clicked so well in the third quarter, regardless of the circumstances of a game?
CC, go ahead and start.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just like the adjustments coming out of halftime, especially yesterday. We knew that first half wasn't good enough. Obviously, we want to work at, better starts, obviously in the first quarter, second quarter, first half in general. But I thought we had great adjustments coming out of half, and I think we also had like an overall great response. We were very, like Kitty said, like very outcome-oriented, outcome-driven in the first half, and I think we kind of pushed that to the side in the second half and, really like trusted the game plan and trusted what we were doing. And we always say like dominate the next decision, dominate the next play. So I thought that was like really our mindset in the second half.
Anything else in the room for the ladies? Anything else on Zoom? Yep. Madeline Kenny, coming to you.
Hi, just a question for Cece, and I'm sorry if you already asked this. I kind of got late onto the Zoom, but just seeing Riley and the way that she's grown over the last 2 years, just what have you thought about her progress, and what do you think is her potential?
I mean, Riley like isn't even close to reaching her full potential. Like, she's just such an amazing player, an amazing person, and it's been great even to just, I feel like I've kind of just like grown alongside Riley coming in as a transfer, and like she can just be so good. And I think sometimes we joke about it, like I don't even think she knows how good she can be. But yeah, her growth has just been like insane over these past 2 years, and I'm just so excited to see how much more she grows. And yeah, we're so proud of her for these past 2 years, but we also like see how much more she can grow, like I said, and the potential that she has is definitely there. So,
Anything else? All righty. Thank you, ladies. Good luck in the next round. We're going to move ahead with Columbia head coach Megan Griffith. Once again, we'll start with questions in the room, so raise your hand if you have something, and we'll get to you.
Hi, Megan. Doug Bonjour with the AP. How do you obviously it's a quick turnaround, how do you get your team to kind of refocus after the emotional high of winning your first tournament game and getting them to prepare for tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing obviously was, enjoy the moment. Like, let's be here, let's celebrate this. But, we didn't come here just to win that game. And, they know that. We've been talking about that for a while. And the most important thing they could do last night, honestly, was just take care of themselves, get a good night's sleep. Obsessing on West Virginia last night wasn't going to help them. That was my staff's job. So, honestly, this morning they got up, they were ready to go, locked in, had a great film session. And, obviously we're going to attack the court later today. But, it's just kind of being in the next moment, I think, and being able to do that for these next 24 hours now, I think is really honestly what's going to prepare us the most.
Right down here in the middle.
Hi, Jillian Franzi with the Columbia Daily Spectator. You guys have gotten pretty used to back-to-back this season. You mentioned the other day about how you planned the Bahamas like that on purpose. Do you guys think in a quick turnaround like this, you have the advantage compared to a West Virginia team that hasn't played since I think March 8th?
I always like to say that there's something about rhythm, and I do feel like we're in a rhythm right now. Obviously coming off the Ivy League tournament, that was not very long ago. It wasn't even a week ago now. Just having played, I think there's advantages both ways. And, obviously we're going to look at it as an advantage our way because I do think it's important having that ball in your hands, having the rhythm, playing a game, competing. I think we saw that a little bit second half with Washington. It's just we broke each other's rhythm up in different parts of the game, right? So I am expecting that tomorrow, but I'm also expecting us to be able to settle in and execute our game plan. Just with West Virginia's pressure, just having the mental and emotional kind of wherewithal as well, not just like let's physically be ready to go, right? But yeah, so honestly, yes, I do feel like we have an advantage there, but I'm sure they're saying the same thing.
Thank you. Down to the front there.
Hey, Coach. Doug Feinberg, the Associated Press. Courtney was up here before singing the praises. She enjoyed watching you guys play yesterday, sort of as a proud parent in some aspects, that having you here, having carryover, in the area, and having Lehigh here also, I mean, 3 of her former coaches and players together, is there some sort of camaraderie and bond that in the Ivy League you obviously have Carrie, but also having Lehigh here and having Courtney here, having like the history you guys all kind of have together?
Definitely. You know, I always say this, like, there's no secret in that sauce. You know, Courtney is a winner, and she's hired winners, and she's coached winners, and you know, we've all bonded over our relationships as well. You know, Carrie and I never worked together, but I was the director of operations for Addie in her last 2 seasons, and you know, there's something special about when you do hard things together. You know, like that's a large reason why I love coaching, why I love this profession, and I just think we all really respect each other and respect, you know, what we've been through to get to these places and get to these head coaching jobs as the 3 of us now. So. You know, but Addie's parents were here last night, you know, in their Lehigh gear, supporting me. Got a text from Carrie the day before. So, you know, I do think we're definitely rooting for each other. And, you know, it's fun to be a part of that tree. Absolutely.
Coach, we'll head down here to the left.
Hi, Coach. Cody Nesper, West Virginia Sports Now. I'm sure coaches don't want to have to play in the first 4, but is there an advantage? You know, West Virginia hasn't played for 2 weeks. You played last night, so you figure if they have any rust, you guys are going to be ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you gotta look at it at every advantage you can get, right? That's what we always talk about, finding your edges, and that's definitely one we've talked about with our program and with our team. You know, I think they're obviously going to be ready to go. I'm sure they're ready to play. But, you know, for us, honestly, you know, I said we're a rhythm team. I like that we've been in rhythm. I like that we've had opportunities to be playing recently. So we're going to attack that and use that definitely to our advantage.
It's WV Metro News. For a West Virginia team that not only presses the way they do, but changes the looks they give you, is it difficult to prepare for that on a quick turnaround like this? I know some of the players mentioned Harvard in particular as somebody that you've drawn some comparisons to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think you call back a lot of your experiences, right? I call back Duke, I call back Harvard, I call back, you know, a couple other opponents that we've seen with similar tendencies. Even Washington, you know, Sellers last night, you know, her and Quinterly do a lot of the same things. You know, I think Quinterly's a hell of a player too. And so we're not going to be surprised by anything that they do. You know, we spent a lot of time looking at this team as a staff and trying to make it a simple game plan, right? So they might do a lot of different things, but for us, it's about let's play numbers up. When we get numbers up, we're attacking, we're playing freely, but when we're numbers even, we're executing. And, you know, just trying to keep that game plan simple so that they're not overthinking in the moment.
Anything else in the room before we hit Zoom? Oh, we're good? All right, Steve Silverman, we're coming to you.
Thanks. Well, first, Coach, congrats on such a huge win last night. And my question really is about that, because you're so good at messaging to your team and getting them motivated. And, you know, last year there were a lot of new things and firsts that were accomplished. First ever NCAA berth for the program. This year, first ever outright championship, and now first ever win in the tournament. What's going to be your motivational message to the team as to why they just got to win this game against West Virginia?
Yeah, you know, I think this is a moment where you call back the journey that you set out on, right? And I always talk about delayed gratification with our team, and you know, this is the ultimate form of delayed gratification, is not just expecting to do something, but going out and earning every inch of it. And I can tell you, we're going to fight for every inch of that game tomorrow. That's just our team. If anybody saw that last night on display, I think they know that's in our DNA. You know, we're going to do it with a lot of love in the room too. So that's, you know, for me, honestly, it's just calling back, you know, what we set out to do and why we set out to do it, and reminding them of that continuously throughout the game.
Steve, did you have a follow-up to that?
Yes, if you don't mind. So if you could also talk a little bit about, of course, the big signature thing with West Virginia, the zone press. I got to see it up close last year in the tournament against Princeton. It is relentless. And I'm just wondering how you think about sort of the trade-off between, on the one hand, being tempted to attack that thing and score easy buckets on some, you know, they're double teaming and they're overplaying and they're trapping, versus risking playing into their hands by doing that, because then they're speeding you up, they're making you make quick decisions. And I'm wondering what thoughts you're having about that trade-off and other dynamics of how to attack that zone press.
Yeah, well, I would say this: as much as they're, a team that creates a lot of havoc, they're extremely disciplined team as well. And there's strengths for each player in that pressure. And it's not equal opportunity. They definitely know their roles. They play them to a T. And so we're trying to help our team understand when to attack, when not to attack, when to set up. When the ball goes here, this is what we're looking for, right? So we're not looking at it as let's just beat the press, right? No, it's way more calculated than that. And I can tell from having watched it, from having studied Dean Smith's run and jump, what some of their tendencies are and characteristics and what they're looking for. So to me, this is way more of a methodical, like, this is how we're attacking this. It's, it's a little bit of a math problem, but at the same time, there's a feel to the game, right? You gotta feel the game. And so, again, against a really disciplined, disruptive defensive team, we got to make sure that, one, our feel is on point, but two, we're trusting of each other, we're meeting the ball. There's just some basic, basketball things that we need to accomplish as well, outside of just what is our structure.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
All right, we'll go to Jen Hatfield.
Jen Hatfield with the next. Hey, Meg, yesterday before the game on TV, they showed a little snippet of your pregame talk with the dominate your next decision phrasing, and the players keep mentioning that too. And I feel like I've heard you say like kind of similar things before, but not necessarily with that phrasing. So I'm curious, like, is that something new, or is that something you've been saying all year and it's kind of just become a catchphrase right now?
No, that's newer. To your point, like, there's definitely things in the same vein that I've said, but I'm just constantly searching for what's going to catch and what's this team. Everybody is like, with leadership and how you get messaging across to people, it's not a one size fits all. Certain teams take to certain messaging, and this team really takes to in the moment and what's the next thing. Like, we can say a lot of different things just kind of depending on who our opponent is and what the moment is. And coming off of the Ivy League tournament and just kind of where their heads were at, I felt like a lot of it was we were playing not to lose. And so we just kind of tried to flip the script back to, hey, we're going to dominate the next thing. We're not dwelling on mistakes, because that's what led us to the outcome that we had, right? And again, I think Kitty said this well. We were just way too outcome driven in that Ivy League final. So this is just a new way to look at it, and I think it's really simple, short and sweet.
Jen, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, that'd be great. Meg, I know you love a good revenge tour. Do you take on kind of the mantle for the league here? Steve mentioned how West Virginia knocked out Princeton last year. Do you manufacture that at all, or even just watch that tape at all?
I love obviously our league, and I'm really proud of our league. But I'm really just focused on Columbia basketball right now, and that's where my head's at. So, I'm not taking on anybody else's revenge. We have plenty of it for ourselves. So I'm focused on that right now, Jen.
We'll go to Rob Brown next.
Hey, Coach. The other day when talking about Washington, you thought speed and physicality were going to be the key. That may be harder to say that with West Virginia. So what are the areas that you feel you have an advantage going into tomorrow's game?
Yeah, well, one, size. It's unique to have a size over Big 12 opponent, but their guards are all smaller than our guards. Now they're extremely talented and athletic and fast, and then they also start a stretch player, right? So it's a different matchup for us. So I would just say, our size. I also think we're a team with multiple primary ball handlers, and that's unique because they haven't really seen that. They've seen teams that have great ball handlers and great decision makers, but we do play multiple primary ball handlers at the same time, and I think that's going to serve as a different challenge as well. So, again, we're going to be different than what they're used to seeing. I can tell you that. But I think that's the beauty of March, right? Is that the matchups are what make this tournament so special, and we're looking to attack this tomorrow.
Next up, we'll go to Madeline Kenny.
Hi, I was talking to Riley's dad today a little bit about her recruiting process to Columbia, and he said that you guys were just really aggressive. What was it that you saw in Riley, and how has she, 2 years into her college career, either met or exceeded the expectations you had for her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, thinking back to that, I've known this kid since she was in 8th grade. So, yeah, I knew, one, it's very rare that you see a player shoot the way that she does. Her against anybody in the country, I'm saying it right now, if they're just shooting threes at the top of the key, 100 of them, she's making more than you. And that's just mechanical execution right there. Her mechanics are flawless. And now the other part, and this is the part I knew would be her biggest growth step, was just like the mentality to play college basketball at this level. And I think that's what I've been most proud of is Riley's level of toughness. I don't know if anybody knew. She definitely didn't, how far and how high she could grow, what her ceiling would be. And, I just told her, I was like, listen, you're the only person that's going to put limits on what you can do. And if you buy in, you believe in, I promise you, like, I'm nowhere near as skilled as you were, but I know how great of a motivator and a leader, and I'm somebody that's really going to challenge you. And if we buy into that together and our relationship's really strong, like, you're going to go where nobody thought was possible. And I've said this to her, Abby Shute, talk about the greatest player that ever played at Columbia. I think Riley could have a better career than that. And honestly, it's just going to take her mentality and how she approaches the next 2 years. But it's fun to see what she's doing right now, and I'm excited for what's next.
Richard Kent, do you have a question?
Hey, Megan, congratulations. Megan, you were a great player at Columbia. You coached against Columbia at Princeton. You took over the job. Was there a moment in time in which you said, in any of those junctures, hey, Columbia could be a great national program?
When I was a player here, I remember I was recruited by a coach that he left after my first year. Then I had another coach. She ended up leaving after that year. Then I had another coach. Then I had another coach, right? So I had 4 head coaches in 4 years at Columbia, which is super not likely. I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. It's just not average. Nobody's used to that, right? I don't know if there's any players anymore that have had 4 different head coaches unless they transferred 3 different times. And I always just said, I just don't really get why we can't figure this thing out. And to me, it was just consistency and leadership, having the right leadership in place, and having somebody that really believed in the institution and could blend athletics and the institution. And, when Peter got the job, and, obviously I was really close at Princeton, watching from, a couple miles away, down a different town in New Jersey. I just said, hey, that's going to be my job one day. And what we're doing here at Princeton, I know I can do back there because nobody's going to care about it more than me. Nobody's going to have more pride in it more than me. Nobody's going to stay. Nobody's going to have stability. And so when Peter gave me the opportunity to come back home, it was all kind of just like, all right, now it's time to do it, right? So I would just say when I was a college student, I saw the potential, but I just didn't see, you don't see the leadership and all the things above you at that moment. Honestly, I'm just grateful that I was given the opportunity to do it now.
We're going to come back into the room here to the left.
Daniel Woods, WV Metro News. Sorry, you mentioned having 4 coaches in 4 years. For J.J. Quinterly, Mark Kellogg's her 3rd in 4 years. So I guess just seeing her career from afar and now as what she's become as a senior, what stands out about her game and in your eyes, what makes her special?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's no secret. Like, it's actually, I knew there was 2, but I totally forgot about her first year. Yeah. She is a heck of a player, I can tell you that, and she's a competitor, and she keeps her cool. That's what I really like about her game is that you don't really see her get rattled. Obviously, she can get hype for herself, for her teammates, and the plays they're making, but extremely talented, and there's just a dogged nature in her. It's just like she's not going to quit on anything, on any play, and there's a relentlessness in her attack to the basket, which I love. I love watching that in guards. So, she's special. If she is looking for a coaching job, she can call me. But, I think she's going to have a long, great career after this. And, it's going to be fun playing against her tomorrow.
Got time for one more in the room if anybody's got one. All righty. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.
Good luck.
No problem. Thank you.